Today is referred to as either Holy Thursday or Maundy Thursday. Maundy is derived from a Latin word for command and refers to Jesus' commandment to his disciples at the Last Supper, to love one another as I have loved you. Jesus practically demonstrated this principle by washing the disciples' feet before the Passover feast. What's remarkable about this is that washing feet was the role of the lowest servant in the household. Think about how dirty feet would get when, in that era, people walked everywhere for miles in sandals on dusty, grimy roads in tremendous heat. Washing feet is a job no one would want, yet Jesus humbled himself to this task because his purpose was to serve, not to be served. And this selfless act foreshadowed his ultimate act of humility that was still to come, his death on the cross for us. During the Passover meal, Jesus did more foreshadowing by establishing himself as the Lamb of God through the breaking of bread and by passing the cup of wine. His blood would soon be spilled and his body would be broken. Our current practice of communion is to remember his sacrifice. Later that night, in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed fervently for God to remove this cup from him. But in complete submission, Jesus also prayed, "Yet not my will, but yours be done." How many of us could pray that prayer of submission under those circumstances, knowing what was ahead? And then in that garden, Judas arrived with armed representatives of the chief priests. It was dark and he identified Jesus with a kiss. And so the events of Good Friday would begin. The Passover meal that Jesus ate with his disciples earlier that evening was to commemorate God's deliverance of Israel from their captivity in Egypt. Jesus was about to give a new definition of God's deliverance, but first he had to submit to the will of God. It wasn't what he wanted to do. He prayed hard for God to find another way, but in the end he submitted to God. Submission to God is often very difficult. In Jesus' case, he experienced such anxiety that he sweat blood, a real medical condition that occurs in cases of extreme stress. And today, take some time to thank Jesus for his obedience and submission to God in fulfilling his calling. All those who call upon the name of the Lord will be